Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with Steve Coffey. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good afternoon, Brett. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you on the show. We're going to be talking about a topic that honestly I don't know a ton about, so we're going to learn a lot from Steve today. Steve plays two different roles or wears two different hats. He is the director of international business development and marketing at Produced Water Solutions. Um, We'll talk a little bit about what Produced Water Solutions does, but they're a big player, obviously, in the produced water space related to the oil and gas market, and we'll talk about that. He's also the president of the Produced Water Society, which is a nonprofit organization that is made up of a collection of industry professionals with a common mission to improve the management and disposition of produced water through the facilitation and exchange of technical knowledge for the upstream oil and gas industry. Now, Steve, before we get into everything, I'd love to just kind of ask you to maybe give our audience a quick definition of produced water. I have a general idea because I just happened to share a house with an oil executive at one point in my career. But tell us a little bit about what is produced water.
Yeah, so very simplified version of it. When you're producing oil and gas from a well underground, a lot of water is also coming along with that for various different reasons. One is because it enhances the recovery of the oil or gas. And actually, most people don't know this, that the majority of what we see in the industry coming up from these wells is water. And sometimes it's a ratio of 5-to-1, sometimes it's 22-to-1. So oil and gas companies really are water companies that produce some oil and gas. So
Wow.
it's a little bit, the numbers actually get quite staggering. And then, of course, to manage that and to treat it and reuse it, hopefully, in the best possible way is important. Because with that volume of water, it's it is a valuable resource that we need to consider what we're doing with, besides all the other environmental aspects that people get concerned with today.
Excellent. Well, before we get into your specific roles at Produced Water Solutions and the Produced Water Society, Steve, tell us a little bit about you and your career.
Yeah, well, I guess I've coming up on 30 years now this January. So it's kind of surprising that I've been in this niche that I picked back in 1994. I had the luxury of starting with a mid-sized family company that kind of let me taste the different industries. And I did a wide range of industries, and I just really gravitated toward the upstream oil and gas market. I started off in Canada, then spent more time in North Sea and in the UK, and then jumped around a lot of different places. So I've done, the upstream market, the midstream market, downstream market a bit, offshore, heavy oil, and a wide range of different niche applications, including most recently the shale play revolution that's going on here in the US. But all in all, of the 53 some countries I've done business in, I would say, the US market, which was my first time doing business with an American company on American soil, other than maybe a meeting in Houston, was in 2016, and it was a good eye opener and a good challenge for me. Spending most of that time in the shale play market, it was one more thing that I learned about the industry, and one more kind of way to do business. So, and then since then, I've had a wide range of different roles. I've had my own companies. I've sold one of them in 2018. I took a job with a large publicly traded company. Had that experience for 3.5 years. Very interesting, very different than what I was used to. I'm now back with a smaller privately held company focused on produced water with the name Produced Water Solutions. It's a Louisiana-based company. Actually, the folks that were running it prior to my arrival and still part of the daily business were old customers of mine in Saudi back in 2006 onward. At that time, the majority of them were kind of dealing with another large German water treatment company, which I guess essentially no longer exists, which seems to be a common theme these days. Because if I look what has changed from, let's say, 2014 to today, or let's say 2020 pre-pandemic, my company at the time had about 60 some competitors. Today, if I were to look at that and see who we're going up against, I would say it's probably less than 5 companies.
Wow. So a lot of consolidation and transformation in the space. And I imagine really the topic around this area, the produced water space, has changed dramatically as well. I mean, I remember start of my career. I mean, you and I are peers, Steve. I remember working on oil and gas brands from an advertising perspective, and the topics that we were focused on at that time to where things are today, where we're really looking at a sustainable future and how do we balance everything out. Tell me a little bit about what's the latest in the broader produced water space.
Well, there's definitely a lot of discussion about ESG and sustainability, and that comes into the discussion quite a bit. I don't know if that's necessarily driving a lot of the change. I think we're slowly learning from lessons past, and collecting data and using data better. So I think there's a lot of that accredits the change and the improvements. But unfortunately, a lot of what should have changed hasn't changed. This industry does seem to, if there's a fault, it seems to continue to do what they like to have always done and really be happy with it. So change is very difficult. Like many of the traditional industries, they have a lot of difficulty in changing the mindset, me included. Although I do challenge myself to continue to, why are we doing it this way? Sort of questions. So if the biggest things that I do see is, I would say, the talk of energy transition, and I don't use that word. I use energy expansion. For various different reasons. It's a better fitting, more accurate description, because we're not going to be using any less energy. We're only going to be consuming more. So the addition of all the renewables, which is great, to the oil and gas industry is needed. But we're going to be using more of kind of everything. So it is much needed. The other problem I have with the use of transition, I really believe that I feel like something was wrong with what we were doing, or how we were doing it. And I think that's not a good idea to lead people down that path. That if we can get people talking and thinking about the same, not picking a side, which side you want to be on, pro or against. I think we can achieve a lot more that way, because we're definitely going to need the various renewable sources in order for oil and gas to succeed, and vice versa. I think that's why you see a lot of the international oil companies really making an effort to blend this into what their business model is today and how they're doing it. They're not replacing their core business. If you look at spinning, it's increasing in their core business.
Well, I mean, Steve, I see that you have, it's always, I've played this role. You wear the global hat. So you have to look at things from a global basis. When you look at how produced water is handled and what the issues are in comparison to what we see here in the States, what's the difference around the world?
Probably the biggest difference is a lot of places in the world don't have the abundance that we have of water and
Mm,
infrastructure. So we're quite lucky, but also it cripples us a bit because we treat water as if it's unlimited and free or very low cost, which we shouldn't be looking at it that way. So
mm.
in the water scarce areas of the world, they value water much more than we do. And that's very obvious when you talk to different people within these, whether it's a national oil company or international oil company. The water people, my people, when I go to talk to them in a, let's say Saudi versus the US, the importance of water is much higher, and their
Yeah.
people are really listened to. Unfortunately here, not everybody, but if I were to summarize, a lot of the companies treat their water guys and gals much like they're maybe one step up from the janitor type of thing. So they really don't
Well,
get the
I was
attention.
thinking about all of these nations in the Middle East. I was really thinking a lot about Saudi Arabia when you were talking, because anyone who has done any work in the Middle East or North Africa over the last decade just has seen the moves that the Saudis are making to reinvent their society and build
Right.
Riyadh and all these incredible things. And you got soccer players like Ronaldo suddenly being
Exactly.
there. It's quite an amazing move that they're trying to do. And at the end of the day, that means new cities, new buildings, new houses, more water, right?
Yeah. More water, more energy, more people. Yeah. More consumption.
Everything.
Yeah.
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 So trying to figure out that balance is going to be absolutely critical. I mean, when you when you speak to them, it's clearly an important issue, and then here it's an issue, but perhaps the topics that are top of mind are different. Is that fair?
Correct. Yeah. And I think another reason why here, besides, the points that I kind of pointed out earlier, I think a lot of the problems may be that, especially in the shell play, there's a lot of things on their to-do list, and recycle reuse isn't way up there.
Mhm.
Solving a problem that's going to be detrimental to production or health and safety might, take a higher priority. So again, we're definitely short on people in the space.
Yeah.
People are wearing 2, 3, 4 hats at least,
Yeah.
and again, it's something that I guess the good news is we have a lot to room for improvement, and we just really need the people and the education, and
Yeah.
maybe mindset changes. If we can get people to change how they think of water, that would be a big help.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably come back to that question in a second. I'm just curious to get a sense of whether there's been any fundamental breakthroughs in recent memory in the space, any technologies that have really helped reshape what is possible here. I guess I'm just thinking of all of the stuff I've seen in other areas related to water, and all these new technologies.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't made more advancements.
Hmm.
Most of the quote unquote new technology is that's being used, today, is really from the 80s.
Mm.
Although there are a lot of new people breaking into the industry and testing and piloting, that takes uh, a long time. So, a decade, that adapting new technology. However, that's kind of more on the mechanical side of things. When you look at just the business as a whole and using, let's say, information or data, I think
Hmm.
we've made major strides there, which, I mean, it makes sense because everybody tracks everything that they do on their phone. So why not use that data to do better at what you're doing for oil and gas production or water management?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that unfortunately, like I said, the changes haven't been huge in technology and advancements, but the areas where there is, let's say desalination or some recycle
Yeah.
reuse, or beneficial reuse that's something that's being talked about and explored more.
Mm-hmm.
So using that for, non-oil and gas purposes. So I think it's coming. It's just, I'm kind of surprised how slow it's going.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, the way I look at those things, Steve, is that that's just highlighting an opportunity for a group
Exactly.
of people out there that are listening. Call Steve and get some stuff going here. This is a
For
great,
sure.
great opportunity. But let me change gears a little bit and just talk to you a little bit about the topic of passion. I mean, it's always an interesting thing when we find people gravitate to an area, and I'm always like, wow, this guy's really intelligent. He knows his stuff. What is it about the oil and gas industry that drove you to it or drew you to it? And what gets you up in the morning to keep that passion going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really enjoy people. I really enjoy working with people and helping people. One of the things I really like to do is help others achieve kind of what they can achieve. And many times it's just simply pointing out the obvious to me, or again, like I said, lessons learned. But I really do believe if we can get people to, think and dream and desire things for themselves, but you really have to, get people believing and believing and inspired by themselves and their own actions. But I think, one of the things is, okay, if you do today what you want to have happen in the future, it does snowball. And I think, those interactions with folks on a daily basis, whether it's a simple Zoom call or email exchange or face-to-face, meeting, I think those are the things that are really exciting, because the education part of what we do is, whether for my day job with Produced Water Solutions or, the nonprofit, Produced Water Society, most of what we're doing is educating and motivating people to learn and apply what's available.
Right.
So it's very simple, but those are the things that I really enjoy, and I really like to see people not only succeed, but kind of improve and kind of like, aha, I got it now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun to see that, and if I can help in that play that role, then
That's
that's enough
key.
to
I
keep
mean,
me
you
going.
need people like yourself playing that leadership role for sure. But I mean, one of the things you mentioned earlier, and I just wanted to come back to it, is this idea of maybe we need to rethink how we think of water or produced water. What did you mean by that?
Well, this doesn't sound a bit negative. So I mean, I've been told that water is unlimited. Here, especially here in the States, or that water's free. Or very, very low cost. Okay, well, here, yes, we do have quite a bit more water than other places in the world, and it is very, from a price standpoint, more affordable than elsewhere in the world. But I think that mentality is very dangerous, just because we have a lot that we can waste a lot. And it doesn't play into everything that we're being told and talked about today, with talking about green and, sustainability and all these ESG initiatives. Well, okay, if you're not measuring and monitoring and taking that data and doing something with it and setting goals, it's just like saying, I'm going to go on a diet, but I don't know a scale. Okay, well,
Right.
how are you monitoring your growth? I mean, I guess you could say, do my pants fit, or do I feel healthy? But those are goals that you have to say, well, my goal is to feel better. Okay, well, that's maybe a little bit different than losing weight. So
Yeah.
I do think there's, like you said, there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity for people to come in and help.
Yeah.
And I do think from other industries, it could be a major help. Although I will warn those people interested coming in from other industries, you may not get a warm reception because it's like, yeah, we don't do it that way.
Yeah. It's I
So
definitely, you come across those business verticals. Oil and gas is definitely one of them, which is
I mean,
if you're not from that industry, it's tough. It's tough to break in.
I've caught myself many times
Yeah.
saying, okay, Steve, go into this call with an open mind because they're coming from something totally different, but listen and what can you learn? You
Yeah.
know, it is, the thing that I would tell everybody coming in from other industry, at least learn some of the vocabulary. We speak a whole different language. I have to try hard, when I'm talking to almost anybody outside of the industry to not use acronyms because we're
Yeah.
chock full of acronyms and terms that don't really make sense. So if you learn a lot of those, and there's glossaries online, there's, you can learn it pretty quickly. But if you use that language and understand that language, that's the first step. Just like anything, if you make an attempt, people are going to warm up, and also you'll learn what they're talking about.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
the conversation will go a lot further.
Yeah. And it sounds to me, I mean, here we are. It's interesting because you're absolutely right. I love the way you highlighted this kind of energy expansion idea. It's it's really easy for us to be like, oh, well, we have to kind of conserve and be thoughtful, but man, the demand of technology and tools and growing populations, it's going to just require a lot more energy, and we need to be thoughtful and efficient about that. And so energy expansion is absolutely the right term. But as you look forward, Steve, into 2024 with the Produced Water Society, as well as in your role at Produced Water Solutions, what are the key topics that are going to be on the docket for next year?
I definitely think that, that whole discussion of embracing the energy expansion will be part of it. Recycle, reuse is at the top of everybody's list. Now, that's also two different things, could be two different things depending on where you are. For us here in the US, I think a lot of what we should be looking at is fit for purpose reuse, which would be, let's say, frac flowback, reusing that water instead of using fresh water. The amount of fresh water that's used for frac and flowback, I mean, if people really wanted to get upset about something, that's what they probably should be getting upset about, not about some emission that, happened in one particular well. I mean, it is good to be, aware of what's going on, but I don't think they're aware of the water that's being used. So,
Right.
and it really comes down to cost, and the technology is there to do good enough for what they need to do for a frac flowback application. So it's really just a cost and mindset thing, and scaling up. And now that we've grown, the numbers. I mean, if the Permian, for example, was a country into itself, West Texas,
Yeah.
it would be the 8th largest oil producing, country in the world. So, I mean,
Wow.
along with that, you can just extrapolate what I talked about earlier, the volume of water coming out of the Permian. So those are the sort of things that I think will be talked about. And then beneficial reuse. I mean, it's been discussed and used in California, in Oman, and United Arab Emirates for over 10 years now. Not exclusively, but sporadically within kind of pilot studies with a handful of different companies, and that would be they're using for various different greening of the desert, or a reuse for agricultural non-human consumption purposes. I mean, hemp, for example. I mean, there's a wide range of ways you can reuse water that doesn't have to be drinking water. And I think that will become a hotter topic, and that's what we're calling beneficial reuse. So I think that you'll see a lot more. I'm part of a stakeholders group with the Department of Energy, Pareto project, where we're evaluating and making it easier for people to evaluate and choose better technologies and approaches for reusing, for beneficial reuse. And
Right.
so I think there's some change happening. Obviously COVID slowed everybody down.
Yeah.
what we started in 2019 and 2020, it kind of, we're just now getting back to the 2019 point when it comes to some of those sort of things, but we're getting there. But I think those will be the hot topics for the future. I think sustainability makes sense. I don't know on ESG if that's going to be as hot as topic as in the past. It seems to be that a lot of that is determined by Wall Street. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's an area that sits within, I think, that broader energy discussion. And it's one of the ones that a lot of people are trying to figure out how we evolve and restructure and do things in a more efficient way. I mean, I think the reality is that today we need a lot of energy. I mean, and no matter what, and we've got to figure out ways to do it so that it's done in a sustainable manner. And the idea that we're kind of being perhaps, I don't want to say wasteful, but perhaps, I don't know, we just feel like we have endless supplies of water is naive, it's such a naive thought.
Yeah. Well, even the use of the word waste. So for example, people in our industry, but maybe not so in this little niche produced water industry, but people in the oil and gas industry or water industry will call produced water wastewater. And that's just a pet peeve of mine, because wastewater to me implies that it doesn't have use or value. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that we need to stop using that term and not think of it as a waste or a cost or a problem, and start thinking about it as a valuable resource, because that can all be reused. You just have to start changing your mindset and apply what we already know to that to reuse it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think there's also the other thought here is that reuse doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be used just for drinking water. I mean, there's tons and tons. The one thing that just pops to my mind, Steve, is these massive, I don't know if you want to call them factories or warehouses that are used for data processing, and they need they're desperate for cooling and finding way, just seems like an obvious fit here.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. There's a long list of those, and the volumes there are quite large as well. So, data is growing as well. So we have to, put the infrastructure in place, and water plays a role in that. So yeah, that would be an obvious one. So yeah, anybody listening, I mean, that's a,
well, I mean, I just look, when I did some research in the machine learning space and looking at what is required to process, it's lovely to talk about data and insights, but in fact, actually the way we approach it right now, it uses a ton of energy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think anything that we can do to find a way to do that more efficiently is only going to be a good thing. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being on the UNCAGED show. If someone wanted to learn more about what you and Produced Water Solutions are working on, or the Produced Water Society, where's the best place to reach you?
So you can definitely go to pwcompany.com for Produced Water Solutions, or producewatersociety.com for the Produced Water Society. That's the 34-year-old Texas-based nonprofit. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I've been trying to keep up with some social media, hopefully doing a better job of that in the future. Also on Twitter. So both of those companies have LinkedIn groups. Just getting a little bit more active on Twitter now. So you can follow me at Steve Coffey. On both those sites, as well as Produced Water Solutions or Produced Water Society. And excellent. We do have some exciting events coming up that if you want to get more hands-on, not just in front of your computer, we've got some great events coming up in Saudi next month, December 10th through 14th in Hobart in the East in Saudi Arabia. A phenomenal event, very well attended from folks around the world. Actually, last year I attended, and it was during our Thanksgiving here in the U.S., and we had a fair amount of Americans there that, it was kind of surprising. And then our 34th annual event will be coming up in Houston, closer to home here if you're in the U.S., in February, 6th, 7th, 8th. So I always encourage folks not only to, whether you're interested from a technical standpoint or if it's from a business and networking standpoint, you will definitely have some takeaways. Our focus is more on the technical side. However, the networking, I'll definitely tell you that this community likes to see people in real life. The COVID period was very hard on our community because we just didn't, we basically, I mean, we didn't do much. It was a 2+ year period of not getting out much. So anyway, great times ahead for growth and rebuilding, post COVID. And again, I think you'll find the community in this produced water space very welcoming, and I think they're a lot of fun too, because it's not only does most everybody know everybody, but it's a very welcoming group.
That's cool. Well, I mean, Steve, it's great to talk with you today. This is really, I think, shedding light on an area that perhaps doesn't get enough discussion. And so it's been great to hear what you see is happening from the commercial side, as well as really from the broader industry side. We've been speaking with Steve Coffey. He is the Director of International Business Development and Marketing at Produced Water Solutions, which is a market leader in the produced water treatment, recycling, reuse, and EOR space. And he's also the Produced Water Society President. And that is a nonprofit organization that is made up of a collection of industry professionals with a common mission to improve the management and disposition of produced water through the facilitation and exchange of technical knowledge for the upstream oil and gas industry. We've been talking about really where the industry is today. And really, I think what I'm walking away is understanding that there's going to be an ever-expanding need for energy. There's going to be a demand for us to be thoughtful on how we can do this efficiently in a sustainable manner. And a lot of it kind of falls into this area around produced water. And so, Steve, thank you again for being on the UNCAGED show, and we look forward to having you back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.